Public shaming isn't just about punishment. It's about breaking a person down so completely that they accept their own destruction. One of the most infamous examples is the Salem witch trials in 1692. Innocent people, mostly women, were dragged into the public eye, accused of being witches, and forced to confess under extreme pressure. The accusations weren't built on evidence, but on fear, hysteria, and the overwhelming power of public condemnation. Once someone became a target, their fate was sealed because when a crowd forms, reason disappears. But why does public humiliation work so well? The answer lies in one of our deepest, most primal human fears: social rejection. Humans are wired for connection. We survive in groups. To be cast out means danger. In ancient times, exile from a tribe was often a death sentence. While today's world may not physically exile people, public humiliation triggers the same biological terror: the fear of being completely alone, despised, and powerless. And it doesn't just happen on a massive scale, it happens everywhere. In workplaces, where a boss ridicules an employee in front of others. In classrooms, where a student is shamed for making a mistake. In relationships, where one partner humiliates the other in front of friends. It's a power move designed to make the victim feel small, weak, and dependent on the person or group that shamed them. Here's where the psychological trap deepens. After the humiliation, many victims seek approval from their abuser. Instead of fighting back, they try to regain acceptance, making them even easier to manipulate. Now, social media has taken public shaming to a new level. A single mistake, a poorly worded tweet, a misunderstood joke, can, within hours, turn thousands of strangers into judges, juries, and executioners. The larger the crowd, the less individual responsibility anyone feels. It becomes a feeding frenzy of outrage, and once someone has been branded as a bad, the internet rarely forgives. But public shaming isn't just about punishing individuals. It's about controlling everyone else. When someone is humiliated in front of others, it sends a warning. Step out of line, and this could be you. It enforces social norms, not necessarily because they're right, but because the fear of humiliation is stronger than the will to resist. So, how do you protect yourself against public shaming? The first step is to recognize its purpose. It's designed to control you through fear. The moment you understand that, the power of shame begins to weaken. Refusing to engage with it, standing your ground, and rejecting the guilt trap are the strongest ways to break free, because the true trick of public humiliation is that it relies on one thing: your belief that you deserve it. And the moment you stop believing that, the spell is broken. Hoovering, one of the most deceptive tricks in psychological manipulation, doesn't come in the form of anger or threats. It doesn't push you away. It pulls you back in, just when you're about to break free. This is hoovering, a tactic designed to suck you back into a toxic cycle right when you think it's over. The term comes from the Hoover vacuum cleaner, because that's exactly what this manipulation does. It sucks you back in just as you're gaining distance. It's used by narcissists, emotional abusers, and manipulators who can't stand losing control. And the trick works because it preys on hope, the hope that things will finally be different this time. A textbook example: Charles Manson and his cult followers. When members of his family tried to leave, he didn't always use threats. Instead, he lured them back in with affection, validation, and a false sense of belonging. He made them feel special, irreplaceable, and convinced them the world outside would never understand them the way he did. The goal wasn't just to bring them back. It was to make them willingly surrender control all over again. But how exactly does hoovering work? It's never just one approach. The love bomb hoover, the manipulator suddenly floods you with affection. They say they've changed. They remember your favorite songs, send nostalgic messages, and remind you of the good times. They become the person you always wished they were, but only for as long as it takes to get you back. Figgity Hoover, if love doesn't work, guilt is next. They claim they're struggling. Maybe they're depressed, sick, or going through a crisis. They make you feel responsible for their suffering. They don't ask you to come back outright, but they make sure you feel like a bad person if you don't. Anger Hoover. And if guilt fails, they lash out. They blame you, call you heartless, or try to make you jealous by posting about how much happier they are without you. But the goal isn't to move on. It's to provoke a reaction. Any reaction to keep you emotionally hooked. Here's why it works. The brain craves closure. Every moment of kindness makes you forget the cruelty. Every moment of cruelty makes you crave the kindness again. It's not a single manipulation. It's a pattern, a push and pull cycle designed to keep you from ever fully letting go. So, how do you protect yourself? Recognize hoovering for what it is, not a genuine attempt to reconnect, but a tactic of control. The second you see it for what it is, it loses its power. Block contact, cut ties completely, and don't engage, not even to explain why. Hoovering only works when there's a response. Without one, the manipulator loses their grip. Because walking away is hard, but staying in the cycle, that's where the real danger lies. And the only way to win? Don't play the game. Cognitive dissonance. People will defend something even when it's wrong, even when it hurts them, even when reality is screaming at them to stop. But this isn't just stubbornness. It's a psychological trap, a mental battlefield where, without even realizing it, you're forced to justify your own suffering. This is cognitive dissonance amplification, one of the most dangerous manipulation tactics designed to make people double down instead of walk away. It creates an unbearable tension in the mind, the deep, unsettling discomfort that we are hardwired to resolve. Imagine being loyal to a leader, a relationship, or an ideology, only to be confronted with undeniable proof that it's harmful, corrupt, or even false. The logical response? Leave? The real response? Most people don't. Instead, they dig in deeper. They justify. They twist reality to fit what they want to believe. Because admitting the truth would mean admitting they wasted time, energy, even their entire identity on something that wasn't real. And that's too painful to accept. One of the most extreme examples? The Heaven's Gate cult. This group believed they would ascend to an extraterrestrial afterlife if they follow their leader, Marshall Applewhite. When their predictions failed, when the spaceship never came, did they question their beliefs? No. Their faith became stronger. Instead of seeing the failure as proof they were wrong, they convinced themselves it was a test of loyalty. And the more they sacrificed, the harder it became to leave. Walking away would mean admitting their entire worldview was a lie. Instead, they doubled down. Until, in 1997, their belief system led to a mass suicide. But this isn't just about cults. It happens everywhere. The trick is escalation. A manipulator starts small, convincing you to accept a minor contradiction. A little hypocrisy, something that feels wrong but not wrong enough to walk away. A toxic boss pushes an employee to cover for unethical behavior. Just once. It feels uncomfortable, but they justify it. I need this job. Then the requests get bigger. Before they realize it, they're trapped in a system they would have once condemned. The same happens in abusive relationships. A partner starts with subtle manipulation, small moments of confusion, of twisting reality just enough to create doubt. Over time, the victim has to rationalize the abuse. They didn't mean it. I must have done something to deserve it. Each justification locks them in deeper because if they admit the truth, they'd have to face the fact that they stayed. And it's not just individuals who fall for this trick. Entire societies do. Political and ideological groups use it constantly. When people invest in a movement that later reveals itself to be corrupt or hypocritical, they don't necessarily reject it. Instead, they defend it. They find ways to justify the contradictions because admitting they were fooled feels worse than continuing to believe a lie. So, how do you break free? First, recognize when your mind is fighting reality. Ask yourself, am I defending this because I believe it, or because I don't want to admit I was wrong? Second, distance yourself. Emotional attachment clouds judgment. Step back and examine the facts without the weight of your own investment. Cognitive dissonance is a natural part of the human mind, but when amplified by manipulators, it can turn even the most rational person into a prisoner of their own thoughts. The scariest part, the more you fight to convince yourself you're right, the deeper you fall into the trap. The only way out. Stop fighting. Start questioning. Exploiting mirror neurons, you yawn when someone else yawns. You laugh when a room erupts in laughter. Your brain isn't just observing, it's mirroring. It's mirroring. And while this instinct fuels human connection, it can also be turned against you in ways you'd never suspect. At the core of this manipulation are mirror neurons, specialized brain cells that fire not just when you act, but when you see someone else acting. These neurons are why you flinch when someone gets hurt, or instinctively smile when someone smiles at you. They're the foundation of empathy, bonding, and social influence. But like any powerful tool, they can be weaponized. One of the most infamous examples, the rise of Adolf Hitler. Hitler didn't just give speeches, he mirrored the emotions of his audience. He reflected their fears, frustrations, and hopes back at them. His speeches weren't just words, they were emotional feedback loops amplified by the crowd's response. He didn't persuade with logic, he made people feel. And once emotion takes over, critical thinking shuts down. But mirroring doesn't need a massive crowd to work. Salespeople, politicians, cult leaders, and con artists use it constantly. A manipulator will subtly copy your posture, tone, and gestures to make you feel at ease. Your brain registers the similarity and assumes, this person is like me. I can trust them. It's why a skilled con artist can make you spill your secrets within minutes of meeting them. They're not just listening, they're reflecting you back to yourself. And this trick goes deeper. Mirroring can manufacture attraction and loyalty. Studies show that when someone subtly mimics your body language, you're more likely to like them, trust them, and agree with them, even if you just met. This is how toxic relationships begin. An abuser may start by mirroring their victim's personality, interests, and values, creating an illusion of perfect compatibility. But once that bond is established, the manipulation shifts. The abuser no longer mirrors, they control, knowing their victim is too emotionally invested to leave. And this trick isn't just used by individuals, it's built into the systems we interact with every day. Social media algorithms act as digital mirror neurons. Ever notice how platforms feed you content that aligns with your existing beliefs? That's not an accident. The algorithm reflects back what you already think and feel, strengthening your biases and filtering out anything that challenges them. Over time, this creates echo chambers, polarization, and an inability to see other perspectives. So, how do you protect yourself? First, recognize when you're being mirrored. If someone copies your mannerisms too closely or reflects your emotions too perfectly, pause and question their intentions. Second, disrupt the pattern. Change your posture, shift topics, or introduce an unexpected idea. A genuine person will flow naturally with the conversation. A manipulator will struggle. They rely on predictability to maintain control. Mirror neurons make us human. They help us connect, learn, and empathize. But in the wrong hands, they become a tool for manipulation, turning your own instincts against you. And the most terrifying part? When done well, you won't even realize it's happening. Exploiting empathy, most people see empathy as a strength, the foundation of trust, connection, and human kindness. But in the wrong hands, it's a weapon, one that can be twisted, exploited, and used to control. The most dangerous manipulators don't force their victims into submission. They make them feel like they're choosing it. Take Munchausen syndrome by proxy, a disturbing example of weaponized empathy. A caregiver fabricates or induces illness in someone under their care, often a child, convincing them that they're sick. The victim suffers real pain, becomes completely dependent, and never questions the person hurting them because they believe they're being helped. Meanwhile, the abuser enjoys the sympathy, attention, and control that come from being seen as a devoted caretaker. This is how manipulators trap people, using their own compassion against them. The trick is simple. Create a problem that makes someone feel responsible, then present yourself as the only solution. It starts with subtle guilt statements like, "You're the only one who understands me. If you leave, I don't know what I'll do." The goal, make the target feel irreplaceable while slowly eroding their autonomy. And if someone resists, that's where compassion fatigue comes in. The manipulator increases their emotional demands, overwhelming their victim until they break down from exhaustion. At some point, giving in feels easier than resisting. This technique is everywhere. Cults convince followers to abandon their lives for a greater purpose, framing doubt as selfishness. Toxic relationships trap one partner in endless cycles of pity and guilt, forcing them to stay. Scammers pose as victims, sending desperate messages that make you feel like you're the only person who can help. And the scariest part, the more empathetic someone is, the easier they are to manipulate. Because once your compassion becomes an obligation, you stop seeing the trap and start justifying the chains. Creating a sense of obligation, a small favor can feel harmless, even thoughtful. Someone buys you lunch, and the next time, you feel an unspoken need to return the gesture. A friend helps you move, and suddenly you hesitate when they ask for a favor, even if it's inconvenient. It's not forced, it's not demanded, but the weight of obligation lingers. This instinct, the need to reciprocate kindness, is natural. It holds friendships together, builds trust, and keeps social exchanges fair. But when used as a tool for control, it becomes something else entirely. In the 1970s, members of the Hare Krishna movement stood in airports handing out flowers to strangers. No catch, no expectation, just a gift. But moments later, they would ask for a donation, and most people, even those who didn't want the flower, gave them money. Not because they had to, but because they felt they should. A simple act of generosity became a carefully crafted trap, bringing in millions of dollars from people who simply didn't want to seem ungrateful. This is how the reciprocity principle works. It doesn't demand, it makes you feel like saying no is wrong. It starts with small things, a compliment, a favor, a helping hand, until the sense of debt grows. And when someone calls in that debt, rejecting them feels like breaking an unspoken contract. In personal relationships, this kind of obligation can turn into quiet manipulation. A partner showers you with gifts and attention, then later reminds you how much they've done for you when they need something in return. A friend who has always been generous suddenly makes you feel guilty for not being as available as they want. The balance shifts, and what once felt like kindness becomes something you can't refuse. This tactic extends beyond personal interactions. Businesses give free samples because they know people are more likely to buy after receiving something at no cost. Charities send small gifts in the mail before asking for donations, making it harder to ignore the request. Scammers pretend to help before making their ask, ensuring you feel obligated to return the favor. And the weight of obligation isn't easy to shake. It lingers, making people stay in bad situations, agree to things they wouldn't normally accept, and hesitate when they should walk away. Recognizing this trick is the first step to avoiding it. Not every favor needs to be repaid. Not every act of kindness comes with strings. If saying no makes you feel guilty, ask yourself, was this really a gift? Or was it a transaction disguised as one?